You look just like her." The words were spoken by a wrinkled stranger at the market, eyes filled with something between awe and fear. A chill crawled up Amira's spine. "Just like who?" she asked. The woman leaned closer and whispered, "The girl they said died 20 years ago." Amira had always felt like a guest in her own life. She grew up in a quiet, sun-drenched town with red dust roads and the same faces at every corner. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Adegoke, were well-respected, churchgoers, teachers, known for their uprightness and for raising a child so well-mannered, as neighbors would often say. But Amira always noticed the pauses, the way people looked at her too long. The polite questions that never quite reached their full stop. "Are you sure she's yours?" she once overheard a woman whisper at a wedding. And her mother's stiff smile in response, "Of course. God gave her to us." Amira tried to shrug off the oddities, the missing baby photos, the differing blood types, the fact that her birthday changed slightly depending on which parent told the story. She lived quietly until the market. That morning had started like any other. A list of groceries, a gentle scolding from her mother not to dawdle, and the sun already scorching by 9 a.m. But then the woman appeared. She was hunched, wearing a faded blue wrapper and holding a basket of roasted groundnuts. Amira only noticed her because of how intently the woman stared. When she walked past, the woman didn't blink, just muttered those words that would splinter her world. "You look just like her. The girl they said died." Amira turned slowly. "What girl?" The woman narrowed her eyes. "Kaleki. The baby from the fire. Her face was burned, they said. But you've got her eyes. That same mark on your chin." Amira's fingers flew to the small birthmark just beneath her jaw, something she'd always been told was a beauty spot. Her voice was shaky. "What fire?" The woman's expression turned solemn. "Ask your mother, child. Ask her what really happened 20 years ago at St. Agnes Orphanage." That night, Amira couldn't sleep. The words looped through her mind like a curse. She finally stood at midnight, heart pounding, and tiptoed to the living room. Her parents were asleep. She opened the family file box, the one her father always kept locked in the shelf behind the dusty encyclopedias. It was never locked anymore. Inside were tax papers, old school certificates, and beneath a folder labeled Amira Hospital, she found it, a brittle, yellowing birth record. Name, Kelechi Eze. DOB, August. Status, orphaned. Fire incident. Facility, St. Agnes Orphanage. Her hand trembled. Her birth certificate, the one she had used for school and ID cards, said Amira Edego, a 2-week difference. Different surnames, different lives. The next morning, she confronted her mother. "Who is Kelechi Eze?" she asked, voice low but firm. Her mother's hands froze on the steaming pot of yam porridge. "Where did you hear that name?" "In the market. From a woman who said I looked just like her." Silence. "I found a hospital record. It has my birth date, my mark, my face." Her mother set the spoon down and wiped her hands. Her face had gone pale. "You shouldn't have gone looking." Amira's voice cracked. "So it's true?" Her mother looked at her, eyes shimmering. "Sit down." She didn't. Her father joined a few minutes later. They both sat on the couch, her mother's fingers tightly clasped. Then finally, the words came. Kelechi was born in a small village clinic. Her mother, Ngozi, was only 17. A housemaid, she died in a fire that destroyed the orphanage. Kelechi was declared missing, presumed dead. "But she wasn't," Amira whispered. "No," her father said. "She was found days later, burned but alive. The authorities are overwhelmed. The hospital didn't even know her name, just called her Baby X." "We couldn't have children," her mother added. "We'd tried for years. Then your father's cousin, who worked in the hospital, told us about the baby with no name, no family." They exchanged a look filled with both shame and sorrow. "We adopted you quietly, illegally, changed your records. We just wanted a child. We didn't think—" "You didn't think I'd grow up?" Amira shouted. "Didn't think I'd ask who I am?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. "You lied to me. My whole life is a lie." Her mother broke down. "We're sorry, but we loved you like our own." Amira stepped back, trembling. "But I'm not your own." Over the next week, Amira stopped speaking to them. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She stared at her face in the mirror, wondering if it really belonged to someone else. Every time she saw her reflection, she saw a ghost. Kelechi Eze. She needed answers, not from her parents, not from rumors, from the place where it all began. She traveled to St. Agnes Orphanage 2 towns away, guided only by a photo of the half-burnt building she'd found online. The site was abandoned now. Walls blackened, gate chained, weeds grew through the cracks in the ground. But something about the place tugged at her soul, as if part of her spirit still lingered here. As she turned to leave, an elderly nun approached. "You shouldn't be here," the woman said, squinting. "I was born here," Amira replied. "In 2004, my name was Collect." The nun stopped. Her lips parted. "My God." She stepped closer, reached out, then withdrew. "It can't." Amira's heart raced. "You knew me? I changed your dressings, held you through the fever." Her eyes filled. "You were the baby with fire in her lungs, but a will to live. They told us you died in the hospital transfer, but they lied?" Amira nodded, breath trembling. The nun took her hand. "You were never alone, my child. You had a sister, a twin." Amira staggered. "What?" The nun nodded. "She was adopted before the fire by a woman from abroad. You were both barely 1 year old. She had your same mark under the chin." Amira felt the world collapse under her feet. A sister? A twin? All this time, another piece of her, living a whole other life. The nun gave her a name. "Her name is Chioma now. Lives in London, I think, but you'll have to find her yourself." That night, Amira sat in her room, staring at her phone. She typed Chioma Ezi into Facebook. There were hundreds, but one profile stopped her cold. A girl with almond eyes, smooth skin, and the same birthmark under the Chioma Ezi, 20. Amira sent a message with shaking fingers. "I think I might be your sister." 5 minutes later, 3 dots appeared. Then the reply, "I was waiting for you." Amira didn't sleep that night. The words echoed in her chest like a heartbeat. "I was waiting for you." Chioma's profile was sparse, just a few public photos, some poetry captions, and a link to a photography page. Still, Amira couldn't stop staring. It was like looking into a parallel universe. Same eyes, same smile. But while Amira's life was quiet and gray, Chioma's life looked like a painting. Color, laughter, light. The next morning, Amira woke to a voice message. "Hi, it's Chioma, or your sister, I guess. I don't even know where to start. I've been looking for you since I was 15. They told me you died in the fire, but I never believed it. I felt you were still out there." Amira's breath caught. Her fingers trembled as she played the message again and again. This wasn't a prank. This was real. She had a twin sister, and her twin had never stopped believing in her. They began exchanging messages, cautious at first, then tumbling like a dam had burst. Chioma told her about her adoptive mother, a soft-spoken Nigerian British woman who raised her in London. She had grown up surrounded by books, art, and affirmations. Her mom told her early on she was adopted, but the story of a twin who died in a fire haunted her. When she turned 15, she started searching old news clippings, orphanage records, Facebook groups. Nothing ever turned up, until now. "When you messaged me," Chioma wrote, "I thought I was dreaming." A week later, they scheduled a video call. When the screen loaded, they both froze. It was like looking in a mirror, but one half cracked, the other radiant. Chioma was glowing, her curls dyed a soft auburn, her apartment bathed in golden light. Behind her hung paintings and fairy lights. She smiled nervously. "Hi," she said, voice trembling. Amira couldn't speak. Her eyes filled with tears. Chioma whispered, "You really are me." They spent hours talking. Chioma had a scholarship to study fine art. She loved jazz. She hated sweet potatoes. She journaled every night. Amira told her about the quiet town, the church-going parents, the hidden files, the lie. "I feel like my whole life was borrowed," Amira admitted. "Like I've been living someone else's story." Chioma's eyes softened. "Maybe we both were. Maybe now we get to write the rest together?" But the joy didn't last long. A few days later, Chioma sent an email. Subject: "Something's not right." She had found an old file in her mother's attic, records from the adoption agency. Among the papers was a torn letter addressed to someone named Ngozi Eze, their birth mother. The letter wasn't from the agency. It was from a private organization offering alternative placement and child relocation services. "They weren't just separated," Chioma said during their next call. "We were sold." Amira's hands went cold. Chioma continued, "That fire at the orphanage, it happened just days after you were taken. The records say you vanished, no trace, no police report, nothing. But I was in a hospital." Amira whispered. Chioma's expression hardened. Yes, and guess who ran that hospital? The Adagokes. Amira's world tilted. Her voice came out barely a whisper. My adoptive father was the hospital's director at the time. Chioma nodded slowly. I think they didn't just find you, I think they hid you. Amira's stomach churned. Could the people who raised her, loved her, fed her, really have stolen her? She couldn't eat, couldn't breathe. Her chest ached like something was breaking open inside. She stormed into her father's study that evening, holding up a printout of the letter. You told me I was abandoned, that no one wanted me, she said, voice cracking. But this says otherwise. You didn't rescue me. You took me. Her father's face went pale. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in her life, Amira saw him shaken. He looked away. I didn't know, he whispered. Amira shouted, didn't know what? That you trafficked a baby? That you burned down an orphanage? No, he cried. No, Amira, please. It wasn't like that. But his hands shook, and that was all the answer she needed. That night, Amira packed a small bag. She needed to breathe, to think, to leave. Chioma booked her a flight to London. Come here, Chioma said. We'll figure it out together. At the airport, her mother ran after her, tears streaming down her face. I know you hate me now, she sobbed, but I loved you like you were mine. I did everything for you. Amira turned. You did everything to me, she said softly, and I'll never know if any of it was real. Then she walked away. London was cold, but it was the kind of cold that cleared your lungs and whispered that something new was beginning. When she stepped off the train into Chioma's neighborhood, her sister was waiting at the platform. They ran to each other like magnets. For a moment, everything felt right, whole. Like the universe had finally corrected a mistake it made 20 years ago. But the peace didn't last. That night, Chioma showed Amira something new. A photo slipped inside the folds of that torn letter, a man in a white lab coat, standing between two baby cribs, smiling. Chioma pointed to the corner of the photo. Look, she said. Zoom in. Amira squinted. In the background, blurred but visible, was a nurse's ID badge. And the name on it wasn't Edagoki. It was a... Chioma turned slowly. Amira, what if our birth mother never died in the fire? What if she's still alive? What if she's been hiding this whole time? Amira's eyes widened. Her voice shook. Then who's been lying to us all along? Just as Amira starts to trust again, she discovers their birth mother may still be alive and possibly involved in a darker truth. The room was dim, lit only by the flicker of Chioma's laptop screen. Rain tapped against the windows like impatient fingers. Amira sat hunched over the photo, her eyes burned from staring too long. She zoomed in again on the blurred badge. Iyaze, Ngozi Eze. Not an ordinary coincidence. This was her mother. If she survived, Amira whispered, why did no one say anything? Why did she disappear? Chioma frowned. Maybe she was forced to, or maybe she was trying to protect us. But protect them from what? They started digging. Using the hospital's archived newsletters and medical staff records from 2 decades ago, Chioma traced in Ngozi Eze, a licensed pediatric nurse who worked at Eden Mercy Hospital, the very hospital where Amira had been found. But after 205, the trail went cold. There were no resignation letters, no retirement notices, just nothing. She vanished, Chioma muttered. And then they found it, a local newspaper article dated April 2. Nurse missing after fire breaks out in orphanage. Officials declare nurse Ngozi Eze presumed dead. No remains recovered. Amira leaned back. Presumed dead? No body found. Just like me. They sat in silence. If their mother faked her death, there had to be a reason. The next morning, they drove out of London, heading to a town mentioned in one of the older articles, Ilford, a small, overlooked place. Chioma found a woman on Facebook who claimed to have worked with Ngozi years ago. Her name was Mrs. Gladys Adma, a retired midwife. Chioma messaged her from her photography account, pretending to be a journalist working on a human interest story about unsolved hospital disappearances. To their surprise, the woman agreed to meet. The house was quiet, tucked behind a church and half covered in ivy. Mrs. Adama opened the door slowly, squinting at them. Her hair was gray and wrapped in a scarf. She leaned on a cane but stood tall. She led them to her parlor, where faded photo frames lined the fireplace. Ngozi, she said after a long pause. Yes, I remember her. Her eyes grew distant. She was a good woman. Quiet. Too quiet, maybe. What do you mean? Amira asked gently. Mrs. Adanma sighed. She kept to herself, but she came to me once crying, said she feared for her children, said someone wanted to take them. Chioma and Amira exchanged a glance. Who? Amira pressed. Mrs. Adanma's lips tightened. She wouldn't say, only that it was a powerful name. Men in clean suits. She thought they were doctors at first, but they were something else. She looked at the girls, and then one day, gone. Just like that. We heard the fire claim her. But I always doubted it. She was smart. She could disappear if she needed to. Chioma asked softly, do you know if she had twin daughters? Mrs. Adama's gaze snapped up, sharper now. Her lips parted in surprise, then pressed together again as though weighing a heavy secret. She used to carry 2 babies in the early mornings. Wouldn't let anyone touch them. Said they had to stay close. She called them her sun and her moon. Amira's voice cracked. That was us. That night, Chioma searched through a private UK nursing registry and tried something desperate. She cross-referenced names that included Ngozi or Ezi, who got certified in the last 15 years, as if their mother might have restarted her life under a new name. She found nothing. Until the next morning, an alias popped up, Nnaina Chukwuemeka, certified in 2008, listed under a tiny care home in Bristol. The license photo was grainy. The woman wore thick glasses and a head wrap. Her face aged, but the eyes, they were unmistakable. That's her, Amira whispered. They booked a train ticket. As the city blurred by, Amira stared out the window, fingers clenched. She imagined everything she'd say. Why didn't you look for us? Why did you let them raise me in silence while my sister searched alone? Why did you pretend to be dead? Chioma's hand found hers. She had her reasons, she said. But it's okay to be angry. The care home was tucked away behind a school. It was small, no reception, no waiting room, just a front desk and a hallway lined with rooms. A nurse told them Nnaina was out back feeding birds. They followed the sound of chirping. And there she was, sitting quietly on a wooden bench, tossing breadcrumbs at the pigeons. Her head was covered, her back hunched slightly, her hands, those familiar fingers. Amira's breath hitched. "Ma'am?" she called, voice shaking. The woman turned and froze. Her eyes widened, 2 mirrors of their own. For a long second, no one moved. Then, in a voice roughened by time, the woman whispered, "Amira, Chioma." Chioma stumbled back. "You remember us?" The woman stood slowly, her eyes filled with tears. "I never forgot. Not for one day." They sat under the fading sun. The air felt thick with things unsaid. Ngozi wiped her eyes and stared at the girls she thought she'd never see again. "They came for you? I couldn't stop them? I tried everything, but the fire wasn't an accident. It was a cover-up." Amira leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Ngozi looked around nervously, as if someone might be listening. Then she pulled out a small key from under her blouse. Old and rusted. "This," she whispered, "unlocks a box. Everything I know, everything they did, is in there." Chioma's voice shook. "Who are they?" Ngozi stood. But before she could answer, a black car rolled to a stop in the driveway. 2 men in suits stepped out. One held a folder. The other reached for his earpiece. Ngozi's face drained of color. No. They found me." She pushed the key into Chioma's palm. Run now." As Chioma and Amira flee with the key, men from their mother's past arrive, implying a secret, powerful organization had been behind the twins' separation and Ngozi's disappearance. They didn't stop running until they reached the train station. Amira clutched the rusted key like a lifeline. Her breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. Chioma kept checking behind them, heart thudding like a war drum. "What do you think they wanted from her?" Amira panted. Chioma shook her head. "I don't know, but they knew who we were. They didn't chase us. They only needed her." That made it worse. They wanted their mother not to protect her, but to silence her. Back in their Airbnb, the sisters collapsed onto the floor, surrounded by documents, laptops, and tension. Chioma turned the key over in her hands. There were faint initials carved into the stem. "Where do we even start?" she asked. Amira thought for a long moment. Her voice was soft. She mentioned a box, something about everything being inside. "I think it's at the hospital." Chioma blinked. "Eden Mercy?" But that was 20 years ago. "Exactly," Amira whispered. "What if she hid the box somewhere they'd never think to look?" They returned to Eden Mercy Hospital under the cover of night. The building was still operational, but barely. Most wings had been repurposed or abandoned. The pediatric unit, the one Amira had been found in as a baby, had been shut down for years. Chioma picked the back lock with a trembling hand, eyes darting like a thief. They slipped inside, guided only by flashlight beams and instinct. It felt like walking through the bones of their past. Dust coated the halls, paint peeled from the walls. A rusted child's toy lay forgotten in a corner. Then Amira saw it. A storage closet marked. The key fit perfectly. The door creaked open to reveal a small, locked chest under a tarp. It was no bigger than a shoebox, metal, aged but intact. They opened it with the same key. Inside, photographs, cassettes, handwritten letters, and a small red book marked confidential, not for distribution. They opened the book first. It wasn't a diary. It was a log of patients, coded with numbers and matching birth records. Chioma traced a few entries. Her voice dropped. Look at this. Patient number 87293, Chewa Eze, female twin. Patient number 87294, Amira Eze, female twin. Status separated for third-party study. Amira's hand trembled. What study? Another entry. Subject selected due to unique DNA markers showing high resilience under environmental stress. Both to be placed in contrasting environments for observation over 20-year longitudinal development project.
Amira recoiled.
They used us, she gasped. We weren't just adopted, we were chosen for some kind of psychological experiment. Chioma's eyes filled with horror. They split us up on purpose. I was raised in chaos, you in quiet. They watched us, compared us. Her hand hovered over the next file, a surveillance report. In it were photos of Amira as a child, playing in the garden, sleeping, walking home from school, taken from afar. They watched me, she whispered. Then came the most chilling file of all. A typed document titled Project Genesis, Genetic Split Testing. Beneath it, a logo. Not the hospital, but a private company, Virex Industries. Chioma's jaw tightened. This is a biotech firm. Why is their name on adoption records? The pieces fell together like a nightmare. Their separation hadn't been a tragedy. It had been funded. Then came a cassette. Ngozi's voice, recorded and desperate. To whoever finds this, I tried to stop them. They promised me my daughters would be safe, that it was just temporary, but they lied. When I fought back, they tried to erase me. They said I was unstable. They set the fire. I faked my death and ran. I had to. If my girls ever find this, know I loved you more than life. Your birth was never a mistake. It was a miracle, and someone wanted to own that miracle. Amira's hands were shaking. We were commodities. Chioma clenched her fists. Not anymore. Just then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message. Just one image. It was their mother, sitting in a chair, bound, eyes wide, bruised. Then a message followed. Give us the box, or you'll never see her again. As Amira and Chioma reel from the horrifying truth about their adoption and Virex's role in it, they now face a devastating choice: protect the evidence or save their mother's life. The phone trembled in Amira's hand. Her eyes never left the image of their mother's bruised face. Chioma's voice was tight, barely a whisper. We have to get her out now. Amira nodded, heart pounding. But we can't just give them the box. If we do, they'll cover this up. And what about all the other families? Shama's gaze hardened. We need a plan. The sisters hurried to a nearby cafe to think. The box sat heavily in Amira's backpack, its weight far beyond the physical. They were caught in a ruthless game, pawns of a company that saw them as data points, not people. We have to expose them, Amira said. Go to the media, the authorities. Chioma shook her head. We don't know who's corrupt. Virex controls so much. We need proof, and someone safe to trust. Amira stared out the window, the city lights blurred by tears she refused to shed. Do you remember that stranger's comment, she suddenly asked? Chayo blinked. The one on my adoption post. The one who said, your family's secret is darker than you think. Amira swallowed hard. What if they're involved? Suddenly, a shadow fell over their table. A man in a dark suit slid into the seat opposite them. Chioma's hand went to her bag, fingers tightening around a small knife. The man smiled, cold, but not without a flicker of recognition. I'm here to help, he said quietly. My name is Daniel. I'm a whistleblower. Amira's eyes narrowed. Why should we trust you? Daniel pulled out a flash drive. I was part of Virex's legal team. I couldn't live with what they were doing. I have documents proving illegal experiments, illegal detentions, including your mother. Chioma's breath hitched. Where is she? Amira demanded. Daniel's face darkened. Virex has a private facility outside the city. I can get you in, but time is running out. They'll move her soon. Or worse. The sisters exchanged a glance, fierce determination igniting in their eyes. They had come too far to back down. Under the cover of darkness, Daniel led them to a dilapidated warehouse on the outskirts. Inside, the cold concrete smelled of despair. Security cameras scanned the halls, but Daniel had hacked the system to give them a brief window. They moved quickly, two shadows among many. In a dimly lit room, tied to a chair, was Noji. Her eyes flickered weakly at the sight of her daughters. Mom, Amira rushed to her side. Ngozi smiled faintly, her voice a cracked whisper. You found me. You're stronger than they ever imagined. Suddenly, alarms blared. Daniel cursed. We've been compromised. The sisters freed Ngozi as guards rushed toward them. Gunfire echoed. Heart-pounding, Chioma pushed a heavy crate to block the door. We need to get out now. As they escaped, Daniel revealed a final bombshell. Virex wasn't just experimenting on you, they engineered your birth, he said grimly. Your DNA was part of a genetic enhancement project. They selected your birth mother because of her rare genes. Amira's mind reeled. You mean, we were designed? Daniel nodded. But your mother resisted. She sabotaged the project by hiding you. They took you away to control the results. Ngozi looked at her daughters with tears. I fought to keep your humanity intact. You are more than experiments. You are my children. Outside, police sirens approached. Daniel had alerted authorities anonymously. But Virex's influence meant a crackdown was inevitable. Amira held the box tightly. We can hand over the evidence to the police, she said, voice shaking. Chioma looked at their mother. If we do, Virex might destroy the proof and retaliate. Ngozi's voice was steady despite exhaustion. You must choose justice or safety. But remember, silence is complicity. Amira looked at her twin, eyes filled with anguish and hope. We can't let this happen to others, Chioma said firmly. Months later, the sisters had become symbols of resistance. Their story leaked online by a trusted journalist. Virex's leaders faced international investigation. Ngozi, now free, dedicated herself to fighting for families like theirs. Amira and Chioma rebuilt their lives, bonded not just by blood, but by shared strength. Moral reflection. Sometimes the people who shape us aren't who we think, and the truth, no matter how painful, holds the power to break cycles of injustice. When silence shields the powerful, courage becomes a revolutionary act. What would you have done if you were Amira or Chioma? Would you risk everything for the truth or protect those you love at any cost? Share your thoughts below. Your story matters.